Hey you guys, do you know what would be really fun?
Roasting a goat for a fat cat.
Stabbing Gary the intern, whom I still hold hostage, so that I don't get kicked out of the group.
No, keep guessing.
We're not going to just keep on guessing. Now, why don't you just tell us?
Okay, we should do a fight montage on this skit because it's been a really long time since we've had Zack edit one of those, and they're really fun.
Yeah, we should go hunting for giant goats.
Okay, you all leave the tavern in Trade Ward to find a herd of giant goats attacking the townsfolk. It's really terrifying. You should probably help.
I attack!
There we go. Another TPK. I'm sure Zack approves.
Wait. I'm the dungeon master. You can't kill me.
Welcome to the DM Lair. I'm Lucar, and I've been a Dungeon Master since high school. On this channel, I give practical Dungeon Master advice that you can use in your D&D games. Today in the Lair, I'm going to be telling you the story of my second ever total party kill, or TPK, where all of my players' characters died. Now this happened a couple years ago with my Sword Coast Guard group, who I'm now running Curse of Strahd with. By the way, if you're one of my patrons at the $25 tier, you have access to my DM notes for the adventure that this took place in. Look in the Sword Coast Guard campaign folder, and it's the adventure titled 𝐑𝐄𝐒 Castle. And this actually quite conveniently leads us into a plug for my Patreon. In addition to access to my own personal Dungeon Master notes for the games I run, my patrons receive a monthly PDF stuffed with Dungeon Master resources. Things like interesting traps you can use, homebrew villains with stat blocks, fresh magic items, they're very fresh, brand new monsters, short encounters, and even entire D&D 5th edition adventures you can run for your players. Oh, and did I mention these adventures come with professional grade maps specifically designed for use on virtual tabletops such as Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds? And this monthly PDF is not just a few sentences scribbled over a parchment-style background. No, it has high-quality, useful content in it that will reduce your prep time and improve the quality of your games. At least that's the hope. If this sounds like something you'd be interested in, check out that link to my Patreon down below, where you can also view a sample PDF to get an idea of what you'd be getting. All right, and now on to the TPK story. Good impromptu little accent there. All right, this happened when my Sword Coast Guard group was around level 10 or so. I don't remember the exact level, but it was around there. And they had been tasked with defeating an orc army that was threatening the entire region of Waterdeep. And the goal was not just to kill each and every orc in the Sword Mountains. I feel like they're orcs, that sort of adventure would probably be a little bit boring for high-level groups of players, so it's a little bit different than that. It's not like we're gonna be grinding and slogging through and killing thousands of orcs. Just a handful of fireball spells if you cluster them just right, I suppose. Anyway, because that's not how you design adventures for high-level groups. You don't just throw 1,000 enemies, 1,000 low-level enemies, and just be like, okay guys, just go hack and slash your way through. Anyway, I digress. Instead, the group needed to disrupt different factions of the orc leadership. There was an orc priesthood of Gruumsh, the orc followers of Shargus, and the orc priesthood of Yurtrus, and finally the orc chieftain, Grimillion 𝐑𝐿𝐿. And the idea here is that if they defeated the leadership of each faction, the whole orc army would break up, fracture, disperse, and no longer present a threat to the region. I mean, there's got to be something keeping all those orcs together, right? And this sort of setup allowed them to go on adventures as an elite strike force with a specific objective. kill off the leadership. It also allowed me, the Dungeon Master, to use all of the different types of cool orcs presented in Volo's Guide to Monsters. I actually remember when I was writing this adventure for them, it was a few years ago, and I was on vacation up in, I think, Mackinac City or something like that, and I was reading Volo's Guide to Monsters, reading all the different orcs that were in it, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be it. And so I designed roughly, sketched together 4 different adventures, each of them featuring a different faction of orcs, as I put it. So yeah, I was pretty amped up to run that. It was pretty cool. Okay, so one of the first things the group is doing is they're gonna go after 𝐑𝐄𝐊𝐄𝐄 Snagjaw. And he has a castle, and the group is outside his castle. His castle is set up on this sort of hillish, mountainous area, really easily defended. And they're in a copse of woods over here, and just kind of looking at his castle, trying to figure out what they're gonna do. They know that 𝐑𝐄𝐊𝐿 is in there, plus he's got some lieutenants in there as well. And the idea is if they kill 𝐑𝐿 and his lieutenants, then, the sheep will be dispersed. So they're over here in this copse of trees, looking up at this castle, and they're trying to figure out the best way to go in. And they don't want to fight everything. They don't want to fight every single orc in this castle, and they don't want to do a frontal assault. And they're sitting there trying to figure out how they're going to go about doing this. And a patrol of orcs comes about and notices them. Now this patrol is a trivial encounter for the mighty Sword Coast Guard. They would have killed those orcs in like a round or under. So since it was obvious they were easily going to be able to defeat the orcs, there was little sense in playing out that battle. In fact, this is the sort of battle where the outcome is already a given and everybody knows who's gonna win, that I would probably just have my players describe narratively what they're going to do in the battle. And then we would resolve the battle just through their describing what they do and how the enemies die. And we would not even roll a single die, just turn it into a narrative, descriptive little encounter. However, in this particular encounter, there was something else at stake here. Could the orc scouts sound the alarm before my players could stop them? You see, my players were trying to be stealthy and not bring the whole castle down on them. And these orcs, being scouts, had horns with them. You know, the horns you blow. They make noise. So I ran a skill challenge for my players. I described the orcs reaching for their horns and acting like they're going to sound them, and then alert all of the rest of the orcs that might be about or in the castle even. And then I asked each player what they would do to stop the orcs. And each player declared their actions. They described what they were going to do, how they were going to attempt to stop the orcs from grabbing their horns and blowing on their horns. And some of them probably just were like, I'm going to kill them. And we rolled these skill checks and we saw if they were successful or not. And the end result was that the orcs did manage to raise the alarm. And I then described Snagjaw Castle as going on the alert. It was nighttime, by the way. And I described more orc patrols leaving the castle and starting to canvass the entire area looking for the group. You see, they had killed that first patrol of orcs they encountered, but now there were more orcs, lots more orcs looking for them. And I'm thinking here my players are probably going to retreat, they're going to lay low, maybe for some hours, a day maybe, so that the alarm dies down, the orcs go back in, and things are reset, and then they can give it another go. But my players decided that was the best moment to try to sneak into the castle. And so they did. They sneaked in through a sally port off to the side. They did manage to evade all of the orc patrols and get into the castle. So they're inside the castle, but there's a little bit of a problem going on. Big problem. You see, they weren't sneaking in when most of the orcs were sleeping, which is what their original plan was, but when all of the orcs were awake and on alert. So eventually they do run into enemies, and those enemies sound the alarm, alerting nearby orcs, as does the sound of battle in the castle proper. And then I'm faced with the classic Dungeon Master conundrum, because most Dungeon Masters have been here before, where their players do something like this, and then it's like, oh, they're probably in trouble. How do I roleplay these orcs? Do I have most of the orcs in the castle proper swarm on the PCs because, you know, the alarm just got sounded in the castle? And by the way, this swarming would include 𝐑𝐿 and Snagjaw and his 2 lieutenants, who alone would be a very challenging encounter. Or do I take it easy on my players? Even though, in my opinion, they'd made a fairly bad decision by entering the castle when it was on full alert. And in the end, I decided to roleplay the orcs as I thought they should be roleplayed. I brought down most of the orcs in the castle down on my players' heads, their characters' heads. Now someone's gonna be like, but Luke, wouldn't many of the orcs remain at their posts in case there were other attackers to guard against? But here's the thing. You see, the Sword Coast Guard, my player's characters, had already disrupted the orcs' plans when they were laying siege to Gauntlet Hall just north of Waterdeep. That's something else that happened in the campaign previously. The orcs already knew who the characters were, knew how dangerous they were, and had a huge vendetta against them. So, Grimillion Snagjaw had ordered his troops to find and kill the Sword Coast Guard at all costs. He wasn't about to let them escape or pick his soldiers apart group by group. Welcome to enemies that are played intelligently and don't just let the characters win. So, bringing the castle down on the characters was indeed the proper way to roleplay the situation, in my humble opinion, and I'm the dungeon master, so my opinion is kind of all that matters, isn't it? Not really, but that's another topic. Somebody's gonna be like, Luke, you just sound like an evil, cruel, horrible person. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so many of the orcs are left in the castle, including Grimillion Snagjaw and his two powerful lieutenants, and they converge on the Sword Coast Guard, and there is a massive, long battle. This is one of those battles that lasts hours at the game table. One of those battles. Yeah. Now you don't want to have those all the time. Those can become drudgery if you have those like every game session, but every so often one of those crazy long, hard, challenging battles where everybody's like, holy crap, ah! Yeah, it was one of those. In fact, the game session lasted over 7 hours, actually, as we played it all out, which is 2 hours longer than we normally play. And as they fought on, it was getting fairly close. If I remember correctly, which I probably don't because my memory is really, really bad, most of the orcs, including the lieutenants, had been killed, and it was just Grimillion Snagjaw left alive. Or maybe it was like one of his lieutenants left alive or something like that. And of course, all of the characters had been killed except one, too. So it was just the orc leader, or one of his lieutenants, versus the one remaining character. And this made for an amazingly cool battle, with the tide of battle swinging back and forth. But in the end, that character perished, and Snagjaw triumphed. And I remember all of the players just being gathered around that table, looking on as it was one character versus Snagjaw, one character, Snagjaw, going back and forth. Everybody all around, helping that character, giving the player ideas for what he could do and stuff, just rooting for him and trying to figure out some way that he could possibly win out over Snagjaw. Sadly, it was not meant to be, but it was an amazing, amazing game session. And even though the characters all died, the campaign wasn't over by any means. This is, I feel, a common misconception of TPKs. The TPK happens and then the campaign is over, the game is over, everybody just goes and plays Super NES or something. No, not at all. The game keeps going on. You can continue that campaign. You can roll up new characters. There's a plethora of things you could do. A TPK does not mean the end at all. In fact, my player Aaron just happened to be trying out a new character, a warlock, I think, and his bard Nigel was safely back in Waterdeep, just chilling and relaxing. It's like pure luck of the night that Aaron was trying out a new character when everybody TPK'd, and so his favorite character, Nigel, survived. It was beautiful. And Nigel was one of the original members of the Sword Coast Guard as well. And as a dungeon master, I was happy that he survived because Nigel was a great PC and the cause of many of the fun little problems the group had to deal with. It's like, sometimes you have those players or those characters that they just do things, they make decisions that really help you as a dungeon master do your job. They help give you ideas for drama, for conflict, for consequences, for things that could happen, entire adventures that could come about because of their decisions. And characters like that, well, they're gold mines, and you really, really don't want your gold mine to go dry. Or dead in this case. Anyway, basically for the next game session, all of the players rolled up new characters who joined the Sword Coast Guard with Nigel as their fearless leader, and they resolved to return to Snagjaw Castle to finish what they started. What do you want? Yeah, you want to be on video? Oh, here's Squeaky. Your famous Squeaky. Oh yeah. Come down. And by the way, if you're one of my $25 tier patrons, you have access to that adventure too. It's titled Snagjaw Castle Revisited. It's clever, huh? Oh, and there is a link below to the recording of this entire game session if you want to watch it for yourselves. And you might also discovered details I misremembered and unintentionally lied about in this video. Now, if you enjoyed the masterful storytelling I exhibited just now, give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment for the algorithm down below. Let YouTube know that I don't completely suck. And don't forget to follow me over on Twitch for some chill live streams where you can ask me your D&D questions and let me know to my face how horrible a dungeon master I am for TPKing my poor, undeserving players' characters. Next week, we'll be discussing the difference between a sandbox game and a railroad. But until then, click right here to watch the video about my first TPK ever. And until next time,
Let's play D&D.